Now we're on. So we're recording, and we're here at the John Steinbeck Library with Andy Fulton. It is July 18th, 2012. I believe you were born in Santa Rita, in the Santa Rita area?
Oh, yes. Not born in the same house, but was raised in the same house as my father and his mother. But I was born there was a small hospital off of Monterey Street.
Okay.
And I was born there. On the same day, but of course not the same year as my mother.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
The odds,
Yeah. So you grew up basically in Santa Rita?
Yes, so did my father and his mother.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
quite a generation living in the Santa Rita area.
Yeah, so
You must have.
consequently, as I said, the house was old. And from what I understand, it's like my great-grandmother, which is my father's grandmother, got married to a guy named Joe Williams, and also, from what I understand, he came over on an English boat, either from Portugal or Spain. Changed his name from Rodriguez. How it's spelled, I don't know. Depends on whether it was Spanish or Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
But changed it to Williams because it was a British whaling ship.
Oh, for heaven's
So
sakes.
that way he became part of the country. And then he married Maria Soledad Castro, a descendant from Rafael over in Aptos.
Oh my, you have real long roots.
Yeah, and lived there in Santa Rita. I believe they built a house because later on my father had another house built next to it. When I was 12, we had an outhouse until the other house was built.
Oh my.
And going to the bathroom at night was not the most fun. But just the way it is,
So where was this house? The first house? What street was that on?
Right at the corner of the street that borders the front of the school.
Santa Rita Street now.
Is it called Santa Rita
Mhm.
Street? Well, that and Boulevard.
Oh, okay.
Right there at the corner. There's a greenhouse just before you get to the house that's there now. And that was the house my dad had built.
So that one's still there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the house that was with my aunt, the one behind it was a long yellow house. It was yellow because the paint they got was leftover paint from the school buses.
Oh, that kind of yellow?
Yeah. It was kind of funny, but I wasn't paying too much attention.
Well, you could find your house.
And I helped tear it down after the other house was built. And when they were building houses there, they were stuffing the cracks with old newspapers.
Ah.
I remember finding one regarding Lincoln, but I didn't have any sense of history at that time. I should have saved some of that stuff. But that's what happens. And I remember going to the church, the child ringing the bell, a little white church up there.
Oh yeah, up there on Main Street, up the hill.
Yeah. And just recently I went up and painted the crosses for my family. And Francisco Castro was
What's the name of the church?
Well, I think it's got something to do with Guadalupe.
Okay.
Yeah, they just restored it a few years ago. It was in pretty bad shape, and I know a group got together and restored it, the building.
Yes, a friend of mine worked on that. I just
Out of Chapin? Is he with Chapin?
No, it was Anna Elkington, and she comes from a long, family that's been here a long time, and members of her family were there too. So she was a volunteer.
Ah, I remember the families scattered around the place growing up. Espinosas, the Fernandez, Martinez. They were all large families at that time. They had been there, I don't know how long. And my mother was a Dust Bowl Okie, so her and her family came over and some of them settled there in mentioned the Spencer's house.
Oh yeah.
They lived there before the Spencers. And most of them got married and moved on. But Alvarado's, my grandmother knew.
Mm-hmm.
They'd been there, I don't know how long they'd been there, but I remember that their house was pretty old. It's still there. The ones they grew up in, And Lou and my mother were pretty good friends.
What part of Oklahoma do you remember?
Fairview, I think. We had no, it's not on YouTube, but it's on Facebook. That part of the family, we had a reunion over at Casa de Fruta, a month or so, or two ago. Yeah, the end of June. And it was good to see a lot of my relatives on that side of the family. They're still around.
That's great.
Yeah, if you have pictures, if anybody has pictures from that, and
They're all over. Look up, you just type in Kersey clan, and there's a whole bunch of stuff there on that side of the family.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a picture of a Kersey, a Joan Kersey. It's one of Laverne Wilcox's photographs.
Yeah. Wilcox was there. Have you spoke to Mike Ford?
Yep.
Mike Jr.,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He has a lot of information, I understand, also.
Yeah. Yeah, we interviewed him actually. He was one of our first ones to help us out.
Yeah, he was studying some historic stuff there
So
in Santa Rita.
so you went to Santa Rita Elementary School. Did it look like this building in the
Oh,
picture?
no.
But total different.
Yeah, that might have been when my mother was going.
So when you went there, does it look like the one that's there now?
No,
It was a different building.
pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
He had a big bell out in front, front office. And a little spot of grass we used to play football on.
So do you recall a cemetery being at where a lamplighter?
Yes, my father used to work the fields there off of Espinosa Road for 20 years.
Okay.
And he got off of work one day and they were getting ready to do some, they were doing some clearing and terracing for houses. And he said, let's go for a walk. We went for a walk, but I believe it was just outside of the trailer park.
Okay.
As you turn left on Van Buren, the slope of a hill.
Yeah.
And when myself and my friend Joey Mesa we go playing up and around there. We found gravestones down in the ditch. And, we put them in our little wagon and drug them to the house. And my great grandmother, she got all upset. And made us go put them back. You know.
Yeah. Let's pause for a second, make sure we got you on
Supposed to come back up.
okay.
So my dad took me up there, and as they were terracing, you know, they
Yeah.
were cutting just about 6 foot down, I guess, and you could see where each grave was, you know. And we found buttons and his hair, teeth, you know, things like that.
Wow.
And,
So all that stuff's still there then, they're built on top of it.
mm-hmm.
Did they push some of the remains down toward the creek?
Yeah, Sousa, who was farming that area, little by little he was taking corners off of that cemetery and driving them down to the ditch. You know, maybe that was his state of mind that in the future he would sell the whole thing, you know. In any case, that's what he did. I mean, built the houses and whatnot there. He probably wouldn't have went over well, knowing that there was a cemetery there. I think my sister and brother-in-law bought the house with their backyard part of it, that cemetery.
Oh, on Van Buren? Is it
Yeah.
on Van Buren?
Yeah, their house used to be on the left going up, and when I go visit them, it reminded me of that movie, you know, Poltergeist.
Oh.
Did they have ghosts?
No, I don't think so. But my sister is always a little paranoid, and she always hears noises and whatnot. So she just came out to visit. She's living in North Carolina now. I don't think it was due to the fear of what's in her backyard. I think I wanted to do a thing at the church, like 12-step recovery meetings, and utilize it before. And like Lou, my godmother, I guess she was influential in getting a roof on the place, the church.
Oh my. Wow.
And Frank Mesa, I just touched base with him after a lot of years. And I had a hard time finding out who was calling the shots regarding the place. They couldn't find any records of the other cemetery. Oh, it was under Sacred Heart, and then they said there was a fire and burned all the records.
Yeah, there was in, I think, somewhere
I
like
never heard of any
1924.
fire.
There was one in 1924.
Was that right?
Yeah, I've got pictures of the burned building.
Hmm.
Actually, I think,
So where was that building?
oh, where Sacred Heart is now.
I don't know where is that?
Went off of West
Oh,
Market.
yeah.
Market and
By the train station.
not
Across
too,
this-
yeah, it's not too far from John Steinbeck's house. You just
Yeah.
go down and turn the corner, and there it is, and there's a school there.
Then I checked with people at Madonna, and asked what would be needed to be able to, do that. Well, you have to have wheelchair accessory. You needed to have a restroom. There wasn't any water at the time, but Frank, I understand he managed to get a water meter and have water put in there.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
Is there
a lot of
electric
work.
there now or not?
No electric that I know of, but there is there's a water fountain that works. And so there was, you can plant flowers and water. I remember them being, there was a car that had been pulled up from Main Street up on top of the grave. I don't know if they knew what they were doing or they were just drunk and parked there. And I was thinking, no, this isn't right. And we managed to put that little short fence around the front of the church. And, we didn't have no funds, so the back of the fence had a fence, back of the cemetery had a fence that was breaking down. So we cannibalized it and used the wood for the front part, so people couldn't drive in there.
Is it possible does this church get used now?
No, my thinking was that it lays dormant for so long, somebody's gonna fool around and start camping in there, and eventually it'll burn down or it'll become a 7-Eleven, something
Yeah.
like that. It would be good if it was utilized.
They haven't held any services there at all?
No. And, my ancestors are buried there. And,
So was that church in use when you were growing up?
yeah, I used to go ring the bell. It's well made. It's all, most of it's built with clear heart redwood construction.
Do you know when it was built?
When? No, I don't. Before I existed.
Yeah, you've got some, how many generations are buried in that church lot? About 3 or 4?
Well, yeah, my great-great-grandfather was like 1900. Right around there he was buried.
So that church probably in 1800 sometime.
Oh, yeah.
Probably when Santa Rita was first founded by Soto.
Yeah, my godfather was Philip, so I didn't know much of the rest. I know that Cipriana was our neighbor across the street. She's long gone, I'm sure. Her and my grandmother used to argue all the time. It was an early memory when old ladies would go out and water the roses and sing to them,
Sing to the roses?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's supposed to make them grow better. They say. They did have good roses. They were healthy.
So what kinds of things did you do as a kid?
Well, Santa Rita was surrounded by fields.
Yeah.
On the east side, it was all Sousa's property. And they had, for cover crop, he'd grow mustard. It would grow as high as the ceiling,
Wow.
And so as kids would go mingle and all that and make little caves, kind of like a maze,
Yeah.
get hidden in there. And we'd, as kids, fellas anyway, we'd grab sticks and go hunting jackrabbits.
Oh dear.
Could never catch any. But it was something to do. We didn't have, video games and all that.
But there were jackrabbits out
Oh,
there.
yeah.
So what was the name of your buddies then you were growing up with?
Well, Valenzuela's and Martinez's and Tanya and I, we all went back when we were little,
So what year were you born?
48.
And so we're talking about the 50s then.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're playing around in Sousa's property.
Yeah. And we used to go up well, we called it Sugarloaf, but they had the Battle of Nativity up
Oh
there.
yeah.
You know,
Uh-huh.
you go up there and you get up there and you can yell. It just echo.
Oh
You
cool.
know. And,
Did you ever go swimming in the ponds along there?
yeah, it was kind of a mud hole. It was a little bit of a quarry where they were dragging sand out, I guess, so it got deeper and deeper.
That's on Gabalon Creek, I think. Huh?
Yeah. What was called, Little Bear?
Oh, it was on Little Bear that they were dragging.
Yeah, but it was up by the Posse Grounds.
Oh, okay.
Area, yeah.
Yeah, that's Gabalon over in there. And yeah,
I don't know where it splits.
yeah.
Should know. It all feeds into Espinosa Lake. We used to take, we'd go fishing in Moss Landing and jump on the bicycles and ride to Moss Landing and go fishing.
Did you ever fish in the creek?
Yeah, I don't know what we caught, if we caught anything. Yeah, there was some sucker fish that made it up there from, I guess, Espinosa Lake. As kids at that time, we would just fish wherever there was some water, mud hole, whatever, you know. But I do remember listening to the crop dusters in the morning, buzz the house,
Wow.
Biplanes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Laverne gave us some pictures of, she gave us one picture of a crop duster going over the house out in Santa Rita.
Oh yeah, who?
Laverne Wilcox.
Oh, yeah, she's probably got a number of pictures. Back in the day, Dad would visit all the people around there from time to time. I remember being little and realizing that there was always an old grandma lived with the family. They didn't farm them out, and they just stay with the family. And I remember being initially scared. I don't know why, because my great grandmother was elderly. And I remember going to school, and some of the kids would be walking by the house, and they'd see my grandmother out in the yard, weeding and watering the flowers. I just saw this old witch. And that's not a witch, that's my grandmother.
This was on your father's side or your mother's
On
side?
my father's side.
Oh, your mother came from Oklahoma. That's
Yeah.
right. Did her parents come from Oklahoma or just her?
Well, they were. My mother's mother was originally from Kansas, and her father was from Missouri.
So they come out too? Did her parents, your mother's parents, come out to California?
Yeah, during the Dust Bowl.
They all came out.
Yeah,
Okay.
along with, I don't know, 9 kids. The typical Grapes of Wrath stuff.
Yeah.
They used to tell me stories. My mother's father, trying to make it with a bunch of kids, moving west, he ended up, trying to bootleg,
Mm.
and he got busted. He went to court. The judge found out how many kids he had and told him to leave, don't do it no more.
Was this here or was this in Oklahoma?
Nevada,
It
I
was in
think.
Nevada.
Yeah. Some of this stuff I just, found that out from associating with my aunts, and they started telling me stuff. And he was bit on the testicles by a black widow, and the only doctor they had was veterinary. He ended up drinking alcohol, you know. I guess it was wood alcohol, you know.
Yeah.
And that about killed him, but he survived. He was a World War I vet. I remember we were in Fresno at an aunt's house, and he put shorts on. And my mom was saying, "Look at all the scars he's got from shrapnel."
And
Well,
who was this?
My mother's father.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a hard life. You want to watch some of these old movies pertaining to that.
Why did they come to Salinas? Do you know?
Well, they were all coming from somewhere. Either they'd come over to Hatchby Pass and land in Bakersfield, you know, or they'd come north to Nevada and over, you know. A lot of it was because they were picking fruit, I guess. You know, it's like the immigrants nowadays, like the Mexicans.
And they liked it here.
Yeah, it's moderate temperature. It wasn't dried up. And they ended up, my grandmother ended up working in the hospital, became a nurse, and my grandfather, on my mom's side, went to work out. It used to be Kaiser Permanente out in Moss Landing. He worked there for a long time.
Did anybody work in the hospital on Main Street? My doctor had a hospital up there.
Probably one of my aunts or my grandmother.
I think that was the first county hospital was up there.
There's one on Monterey Street too.
Okay.
I think it was right behind the El Rey Theater on Monterey Street. I think that's where I was born.
Did you go to Salinas High?
No.
No?
No, North Salinas.
Oh, you went to North Salinas High
Yeah.
when it first opened?
Yeah. Well, I didn't adjust to high school real well. So, personally, you know, becoming a teenager, and I wanted better clothes. So the only time I got clothes were I'd get underwear and stuff around Christmas time, and they'd call it, you know, birthday, the same month, and all that. Or just before school, go get a couple pair of pants, you know.
So when you were growing up, did people kind of share clothes as kids grew out of them? They'd kind of share clothes with the different families?
No, not that I recall. No.
What'd you do after you left high school?
Well, my dad was a hard worker in the fields, and he was telling me, you know, you're not going to go to school, go to work, you know. So I met up with this girl, drinking beer, got her pregnant, and decided, well, I better go to work. And that's what I did. Went to work in the fields, and then eventually went to work at Firestone.
Now that's interesting. That's you're the first person that I've met other than someone I knew a long time ago that actually worked at Firestone.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm. How long did you work there?
Till I got drafted into the Army.
Oh.
3 years.
What did you think of the company?
It was all okay until I sold out and moved south. You know, but
Well, people generally made pretty good money there, didn't they?
Yeah, you can put a lot of hours in and do pretty good. Well, no one can just see my shadow.
You're still there, but we'll
And went into the army, and my whole life changed.
I can imagine. What year was that you went into the army?
71.
Did you eventually come back to Salinas after you were in the military, or?
Yeah, my folks were still here. My wife was still here, the kid. But she was not real loyal. And I thought I was going to go to Southeast Asia, but ended up in Berlin.
Oh,
Yeah, and then Frankfurt. And then my wife wasn't treating my kids right. I mean, she was going out partying and leaving my kids in the car and whatnot. So my parents got a hold of me and I came back here. Tried to make things work. I did for a couple of years. And we had my son. And then things started to blow up.
have you lived all this time in Salinas since you came back from the military?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, and then I moved over to Santa Cruz County. Lived up in Fulton for a while.
That's pretty up there.
Yeah, it is. And went to work for the state parks. And then went to work for Caltrans.
Caltrans.
Yeah,
What'd you do for Caltrans?
was equipment operator.
Were you?
There's a thing called valley fever.
Oh, yes.
It's in the dust over.
Mm-hmm.
I was working in a little place called Glenville. Out of Delano, it's up 155 east, up in the hills. Population of 130.
Yeah.
And I breathed too much dust, I guess, and got valley fever. And I didn't even know what it was.
Well, it can be really devastating.
Yeah, it's a fungus, like a mushroom fungus. It gets in your lungs and causes problems. So I eventually had to quit doing that, and I got into drugs and alcohol, and it was becoming a problem, so I started doing 12-step and cleaned up and was trying to help other people. So having to get off of equipment because of the dust and whatnot, I went back to school in Santa Cruz, Scotts Valley, Bethany, and
Oh, Bethany. Yeah.
and became a substance abuse counselor and worked here in Monterey and in Santa Cruz for a little while.
That's quite a life. It's different.
Were you and Tiny in the military together? So he
No.
was too.
Me and his brother were going to join up together, George, but I got held back a little bit, so that they snatched him up and shipped him off. Well, Tiny is a couple of years younger than me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he ended up in Vietnam, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And you ended up in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Then in 2000, I went up to Sonora. Job wanted me, so I went up there. And I find out that there's some history up there regarding Marietta.
Oh, Marietta.
Yeah, in the town called Murphy's, which isn't far from Sonora. Marietta had his brother up there, and they had some kind of squabble over a goat or something. Goat and booze, because his brother's alive. And then he took off. You know, I think they used his story somewhat regarding the movie Zorro.
Hmm.
Yeah. They couldn't find him, you know. People would say he's over here and he's over there, and he can't be.
Was he a wanted guy?
Well,
over this,
yeah.
Over this goat and booze fight?
Oh, well, he was wanting to retaliate because of the death of his brother.
Ah.
It was about a goat, miners and the goats up there in Murphy's. But he sent his wife away to live in Niles Canyon. I don't know if you know where that is.
Nope.
It's out of Niles is a little tiny town outside of Union City. And there's a road that goes up the canyon, Niles Canyon. And he had stashed his wife up in there to hide out or to stay away from, you know, the people that were looking for him. But he was kind of taken care of, somewhat like Vasquez, the local. Oh yeah, Captain John C. Fremont. Great grandmother was telling me about him.
About Fremont?
And, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
She knew him?
No, I don't think she knew him personally. Everything was verbal back then.
Mm-hmm.
From what I understand, I was telling you earlier about how mustard would grow real high. And Fremont and his men were just supposed to, they were on a surveying thing, but he had other aspirations politically. Anyway, he was over here and his men created a lot of disturbance in Monterey and disrespecting the women folk and all that. And that's, you know, soldiers, when they're out of country, you know, they're pretty disrespectful to the people that live there. And anyway, the ranchers all got together and they ambushed them with lariats and horses in the tall mustard fields.
Hmm.
And they chased them over towards Natividad.
Yeah. This was the Battle of Natividad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what she was telling me anyway.
How interesting.
But they didn't shoot, you know, they didn't, it was just with lariats. They were pretty good with the lariats. Well, they were horsemen, you know. Well, that's how they got chased over there, and then went up to Fremont Peak, you know. And then they started calling it Fremont Peak. It used to be Hawk Peak.
Oh, did it? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's the
So
first
that's
I've heard of
Gavilon
that.
is Hawk. They call it Gavilon Peak? They call it Gavilon Mountains.
Yeah, it's the Gavilon Mountains, but
The range.
Yeah.
but they called it Hawk Peak. It's the
Yeah.
first time. Oh, goodness, I didn't know that.
Well, there's a reason for me to be here today, to relay that was given to me when I was a youngster.
Oh, absolutely. That's the only way this stuff lives
Yeah.
is when you pass it on. And
So the last time I saw that movie Zorro, I was relating that to how, you know, the rest of the states, well, the feds were coming in during World War II, Civil War and so on. And how they wanted to acquire the gold fields, all that.
well, is there anything special you would like to leave for the future to tell people?
Well, when I was a kid in the old house, people used to save things like many people do now. And American pickers would have loved the yard picked through. I remember finding an old whaling spear,
Oh, yeah.
in the weeds and stuff. Of course, the wood was tainted pretty bad, but it was a whaling spear.
I think they had whalers here.
They did. They used to
And the
whale.
Portuguese were whalers.
Out of Moss Landing. I don't know if you ever mostly through Moss Landing Cemetery, but they used to section out. There'd be, Germans, Italians, Swedes. They'd be all buried in plots
I
together.
didn't know that. Oh, my.
And I often wondered what this one statue was of a female. Her name was Fanny Giggling. Now, I know there was some Gigglings around because there's a Giggling road over towards around Watsonville.
Wasn't there a giggling road at Fort Ord, too?
Maybe.
There
I'm not
was.
sure.
Yes, there is.
But the name sounded like maybe she was working off of Cannery Row or something,
Right.
But it was like that, bury people in the sections. And Juan Castro is buried out there. I believe that's why Castroville was named Castroville.
Mm-hmm. Was that part of your family?
Yeah, the Castro side. They were one of the few people that had land grants. Raphael and Martina. Raphael is buried out there in Aptos area.
Oh.
The cemetery, you take Seacliff and on SoCal you turn left, and there's a cemetery just on the left. My little sister Sarah, she's out in North Carolina also. She's touched base with a lot of people that are related to the Castros. But I would just suggest people that have their histories not to forget them. It gives you a foundation of where you are as a person and where you've come from. I'm always looking. It's very interesting because they can't, the Castros came up with the expedition years ago. They were here in the 1700s. They were doing the excavation of Californios. They were doing the excavation and ranching here. While back east, they were still formulating a constitution and whatnot.
Yes, they had a lovely culture. It seems like when you read it.
Yeah, and they didn't have contact with Mexico. They were basic Spaniards,
Yeah, that was the first group that came in, the Spanish.
Yeah, and they were governing themselves. Thus, all these families grew, like little tribes, And
And so here we have you, a representative.
it's pretty interesting.
Oh, yes.
So when you're a kid growing up and into your teenagers, what towns did you go visit around? Did you go out to like San Juan Bautista, or you went to Moss Landing? Did you go into Monterey at all, or down? How did you get to downtown Salinas and things like that?
Oh, well, there was Alisal, where all the Okies
Mm-hmm.
was. It seemed like, looking back, I was always scrapping with somebody because I wasn't dark enough, mixture. But
So if you went to see the movies, would you come downtown to see them?
yeah, the Crystal, the Fox, the El Rey.
And did you drive or take a bus or walk or
Oh, often
ride your
somebody
bike?
have access to a vehicle. And we used to go as kids, we'd go along the riverbank and collect metal, take it to burning steel, and cash in the steel we'd find along the riverbank.
Oh yeah.
Get gas and whatever.
Steel. Huh. I didn't know that.
Where was Berman Steel up there on Main Street?
Oh, it was in Chular, closer to Chular.
Okay.
Off of the right, the 101 going south. It's scrapping, for gas and whatnot. But my dad was a pretty good dad. He'd take me fishing and hunting and all over in Los Padres Forest. I knew all those roads back there. So I had a good father. Did a lot of things with me. Back when people didn't tell their sons they loved them, they just do things with them.
So you would go hunting in Los Padres and fishing out at Moss Landing and go down to Chular for the metal and
Yeah, we'd also fish the ponds that ranchers would store water in, They'd throw bass in there and catch some big ones,
I know there were some ponds on the creek. We go further up toward Crazy Horse Canyon Road. Did you ever fish in ponds up
Ghouls,
Yeah.
Ghouls Pond, yeah.
there? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, Ghoul is who owned all that property now. There's a bunch of strawberries there.
Yeah.
And there was also one where the Chin brothers used to, I'd go to work in the fields too. I'd cut lettuce throughout the summer, Person can't do that now.
Yeah. As summertime work, you mean?
Yeah, they talk about the kids they're all looking for work. And it's a social barrier, if I can say it that way.
Mm.
You know?
Well, yeah, I suppose there is. Is that, you think it's the social barrier that keeps kids from going and working in the field?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Well, unless you're of a Hispanic background. And I guess you could join the union but you better learn Spanish.
Well, no, that was a time-honored thing. I've talked to people who went and picked in the fields, and even my dad, he worked in canneries, not around here, but
Mm-hmm.
to get money during the summer.
Right. Well, you don't see the youngsters out there independently. Unless they're with a family or something.
Yeah, there might be laws and things like that. I'm not up on that.
Well, it was a time where I really needed to go to work. I was out of work. I figured, well, I could jump the bus and go cut lettuce. I can cut lettuce as well as anybody. And start working cutting lettuce, you have your own line, your own row, and everybody's cutting. And they'll have a couple of people that jump from row to row to help the laggers.
Mm.
And they wouldn't jump in my row. By lunchtime, I'm behind.
Oh, really? How long ago was this?
Oh, over 20 years ago. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so lunchtime, the boss says, "Oh, you're behind." I said, "Yeah, I know. I know what's going on." So if you're not in, you can't do that. As a youngster, I'd be able to do it. Now, I was working during the strike, driving tractor over Watsonville way for Crosetti. And then they decided to strike me. I'm on the tractor planting. And I wasn't giving way, and they decided they were going to rush the tractor.
Oh, that's a little hairy there.
Yeah, so I just went through the middle and split them, and spun around and split them again. Rossetti and the sheriffs were down at the other end. I went down to the other end, shut down, told them somebody's going to get hurt here. Oh, just keep going. They're going to think they won. I didn't really care for that. I was just getting an hourly wage, This is his company.
Oh, my.
Well, just go halfway, turn around. So I did that,
They're putting you between everybody, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. He wasn't offering me any stocks, but I had to do something. So I go into work. I had to have a friend drop me off at work. And they were putting the screen around the tractor like a cage,
Oh.
Because they were throwing bricks and things.
Yeah, sometimes they weren't really, if they considered you a strike breaker, they didn't care for that very much.
Well, I empathized with what they were about. My father had worked in the fields for 20 years. He didn't have any vacation time. And I worked for $1.25, and but I'm doing the planting. I guess I was taking somebody's job. So I decided to back off and went to work for Western Farm Service. Because that's what I do to run equipment. My dad taught me that a long time ago.
What is it that you do? I'm sorry, it's you.
Well,
What do you?
I became an equipment operator eventually.
Equipment operator.
And I was running a farm tractor for a long time.
Let me ask you, when you were growing up in Santa Rita, how many families were in the community then?
Well, there was a lot of people moved in while I'm there. Of course, I told you my folks have been there forever.
So there's like 30 or 40 houses in there?
Oh, not that many. Mosses, yeah, Wilcoxes, Sylvies, Espinosas, Hernandez, the Mesas had moved in, and the Rallises.
Well, it was a lot smaller than I thought it was. I thought it was a little bigger than that. It's pretty small.
Yeah,
And so most of the houses were right there around Main Street and Boulevard and
Yeah,
East and West Boulevard.
that was 101,
So when did they start building? In the 50s? Was it in the 50s they started building a lot of houses out there?
Well, the house, as far as I can remember, was not that new. We didn't have plumbing, And Massa's store, as I recall, that's why I wanted to bring those pictures of from an aerial view. You can see all the little trails people walk to the store, all these little trails going to the store.
No, I didn't know that.
And you can see all the vacant spots and a few houses here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the new building started until they got incorporated into Salinas and they started building Northridge Estates and Lamplighter was put in.
Oh yeah, there's a
Then the
mile
apartments and
of lettuce fields between Salinas city limits and Santa Rita.
yeah, it was totally separate
Mm-hmm.
until about the 70s and then it started building up
Yeah,
after that.
yeah.
That's when you were in the military, I
Yeah.
guess, and all that when that happened.
Yeah, everything sort of changed.
How long were you in the military?
Just 2 years.
So did you watch the changes? You were here for a lot of the changes.
Yeah, I was in and out a lot.
I just wondered how was it mostly when you were growing up, was it mostly farmland right around?
Yeah, Santa Rita was like it was like Berlin. It was like isolated.
Right.
Oh, my dad tells me he remembers that when he was a kid, they were still bringing cattle from over Gilroy Way to Salinas to rail to the trains.
I've been told in the early 1900s they had, I think it was early 1900s, they had cattle drives through Salinas.
Yeah, my dad said he remembered that.
Through Santa Rita.
Yeah,
From Gonzales, did you say?
Gilroy area.
Gilroy.
Yeah.
Well, you've had an interesting career. Experienced
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
did.
different jobs and
Yeah, I've seen a lot of changes. I've been wanting to do some writing someday.
Well, we would like for you to do that because it's a great history to record.
it is.
Yeah.
And if you don't, nobody will.
True, my son been nagging at me to do that.
Well, we're always happy to have things here in our local history collection. We have recollections in our local history collection. Or you can publish it. They're doing a lot of on the internet.
There's a book my dad made me aware of. It's called the Salinas, the Upside Down River. Have you ever read it?
Right, yes. Fisher.
Yeah, I forget who wrote it, but they described how like the Carmel River was initially when, there's a reason for grizzly bear being a state animal, because there was so many of them. And the salmon running and the bears getting the salmon out of the Carmel River, and it takes you back in time. I remember talk about quicksand in the river, or spots of the river.
Yeah, in Salinas.
Salinas River?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I've heard stories of that. People would play in there and they knew where the quicksand was and avoided it.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly hope you set down some of your memories on paper. That would be really great.
I like history. And this is the college building?
That was the
Original?
original one out on Hartnell Hartnell's Alice Al Rancho,
Uh-huh.
and it was taken down. I don't know exactly when, but those pictures of the original Hartnell College. And this is the first Monterey County librarian, or the Monterey County librarian.
But where's the library? The trees?
I guess. This one she's going to Big Sur. She went over to the coast, and
Yeah.
that one I don't think I have particular information on that one, but I do have a few others. I could.
So when you guys were growing up, you mainly entertained yourselves just in and around Santa Rita then?
Oh yeah,
In
we
the
used to play
fields and-
marbles,
Yeah.
you know. It was those old games.
Was there
Kick the can.
Was there a field out there where Cruz's Saddlery is? Or it was. On West Boulevard and Main Street, there was a field there. Used to be. Did you play softball there or baseball? Or that's when Mike Ford was growing up. It may not have been there when you were growing
It
up.
was the Saddlery was it was Moss's
Store.
store first that I
Yeah.
recall.
Yeah.
But mostly we played ball at the school,
Oh, okay.
and then sometimes we played right next to where we used to live because it was all the field until
Between you and the school? Or the other side?
the house looking west. I don't know what they call it now. Maybe Perez Street. It might have been Perez Street.
Okay.
But they built a bunch of houses there as soon as my late grandmother passed away. Her son, Tommy, his wife, and her daughter, they moved in and took over the property, and then they sold it right away. So they built houses.
Yeah. Divided into lots and
Right.
well, I think you have other pictures you wanted to show?
Sure. We should probably.
Critters come out when someone passes away, and they all come and pick over the bones, you know.
Yes,
Kind of sad, actually.
but I guess that didn't happen in your family. You kept
Sure
your
it
little
did.
house. Oh, you didn't.
Yeah.
Well, it does happen. Well, I'm going to.
You have some photos you wanted
Yeah,
to
I
show
had
me?
some photos. We should probably stop this while I show you the photos.
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess we just
Stop.
click stop.
Yeah.
I certainly think.